Annika McGivern, how are you doing?
Hello. Hi, Michael. I'm doing so well. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Thank you for joining us here and basically fixing all of our messed up heads.
We'll see what we can do in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll see what we could do in about 20 minutes. We've got 20 minutes to fix ourselves here.
Good challenge.
Annika, so I know you're living in Dublin. First of all, well, I'll tell you what, let's give a quick introduction to yourself if you want to do that, just for
Of course.
anyone on here that maybe hasn't seen your stuff in the past or anything like that. So if you want to
Perfect.
give a wee intro and a wee title.
Absolutely. I work as a mental performance coach or a sport and exercise psychology coach. Yes, as you said, Michael, I'm currently living in Dublin, but I originally come from the west coast of Canada, beautiful British Columbia. And I lived in Belfast for about a year and a half, not too long ago, doing my master's at Ulster. And so that's the start of the long series of connections that brought us here today, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Annika, you come on and done a bit of a talk for our members at the gym as well,
Mm-hmm.
which was awesome. I wasn't able to get on that day, but I was able to catch up afterwards, which was really,
Great.
really cool. And I guess so. The first sort of question that I kind of had for you was why you get into this particular vocation in the first place.
Yeah.
Sort of curious about that.
Definitely. So I actually grew up as an equestrian athlete, doing like show jumping, dressage, eventing. And when I originally graduated high school, I just knew I wanted to like really pursue that as a career and travel. So that took me actually to Ireland and Australia, and eventually then down to the States, competing full time. And so I was really kind of like living in that sort of high performance sport lifestyle. And and that's really where I first encountered the concept of sports psychology. It wasn't something that I'd grown up with. It wasn't something we were taught, as younger athletes. And when I encountered it, I was just immediately so intrigued by it. And specifically because I had an experience myself where it really helped me get back on track. I had a series of bad falls that really rattled my confidence and really started to change the way that I was riding. And it was a very kind of unsettling experience. And I eventually reached out to a sports psychologist, and he was able to basically sort me out and get me back on track. I think it was like 3 Skype sessions, and the whole thing was just resolved. And so that blew me away because I've been working with coaches for months to try to resolve the issue with no luck. And what that experience did is it basically opened my eyes to this whole like a second world to sport and performance that is all entirely based on our brains and how we think about ourselves and the way we evaluate the situations we're in. And once I saw that world, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. I need to learn more. And so then I guess my own curiosity eventually led to me deciding to pursue it as a full-time career.
Amazing, amazing. So, fundamentally, I suppose, like, I always say to people, you can't control the external environment without first controlling the internal environment, both,
Mm-hmm.
physically and I suppose psychologically as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you say is the main? And by the way, this is me just being completely curious here. I'm a student today,
Mm-hmm.
and by all means, if I'm asking silly questions, I'm just trying to get into the mind of the listener as well. What would you say is the fundamental difference between sports psychology and I suppose general psychology? How people operate in their everyday lives versus
Mm-hmm.
how they perform on the pitch or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. I suppose first of all, like there is a lot of crossover in terms of a happy, well-grounded, well-centered, well-balanced person is always going to be someone who performs better because that general sort of sense of well-being is so intrinsically connected to what we do. And as a result, so yeah, there is a lot of crossover. But what really differentiates sport and exercise psychology is that we are really focusing in on that element of performance, of how to sort of optimize. And there's a lot of the word that goes around a lot, flourishing. So the idea of doing better than just being okay, about like really tapping into fulfilling your full potential and accomplishing everything that's possible for you in your life. And so that sort of becomes the main focus of sport and exercise psychology, but it does very much exist within the bigger picture of helping people just have a better quality of life as well, and feel better about themselves and more in control of their life and their direction.
Love it. Love it. So I suppose from a sporting standpoint, is it like, what are the most common stumbling blocks that people come up against? Is it, let's say, for example, like in a physical fall, which I assume is what happened to you? Based on my experience, let's say with fighters who maybe get, concussion or I suppose from a physical standpoint, or does it happen maybe through, like, what's the most common, a buildup of, I would say, maybe tiny mistakes, performance. What is it more common that people would take a knock through what happened to them physically or psychologically over time? Hopefully that makes sense.
No, I totally see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know if one's more common than the other. I think the challenge or the block can start from both ways. So for me, it was something, it started with what we call like a physical or a tangible mistake that I made in my riding, which resulted in me falling, which then resulted, that experience was sort of acted as a trigger for the more psychological side, where it triggered a lot of fear and self-doubt. So our brain, our sort of basic level brain, is very much concerned with our survival, and that just comes from way back evolution. But that reality gets in our way a lot as sort of modern humans, because that part of our brain is very good at sort of hijacking our thinking whenever it thinks that we're under threat or that we're in danger. And so a lot of the times when we face challenging situations through sport or through exercise, the very act of sort of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in order to do that, in order to perform and excel and improve, kind of triggers that part of your brain that's only concerned about you making it to tomorrow and doesn't realize that you're not actually about, at risk of dying. But what that does is it triggers this system that signals to our body that we actually need to retract and be safe and look after ourselves. And that feeling and those thoughts and the beliefs and actual physical, emotions of anxiety that are all wrapped up in that, are really in sort of direct opposition with what we want to be doing, which is being, brave and courageous and open-minded and embracing the growth mindset and the challenge mindset in order to stay calm and focused and centered, and therefore perform at our best. So it can very much start on both ends. The physical event can trigger it, or a series of psychologically based events, things that would just rattle your confidence, rattle your belief in yourself, give you the sense that maybe the world's working against you, or you're not good enough, or you're not, you don't have enough natural ability. That's something that people get really hung up on. Can also sort of trigger what turns into a big mental, we've called a big mental block, essentially, something that's really blocking you from achieving is at your full potential.
Yeah, completely. So I suppose from a performance standpoint as well, a lot of guys and girls on here are fitness industry based. A lot of them are coaching clients as well, and probably suffering from some of the more common things that we might see, self-consciousness, imposter syndrome. We were just talking about, videos, being on, getting better at being on video prior to we come onto this call. And it's one thing that I really try to, push our guys to do at Elite. It's like, right, okay, try and get better on video. It's going to work really well for your business. It's going to help more people ultimately, that is the ultimate goal. and even something as small as talking into their own camera lens, with no one around, is like, it almost seems like completely unachievable to people and alien to people. And I always try to say to people that, listen, I know it's difficult, but you kind of need to get over that phase of, you know, being self-conscious about that, because self-consciousness is the biggest killer of all businesses. So how would you say that sort of crosses over to business as well, especially in our world in personal training? Like, how important is it for people to kind of get over these barriers as well in order to help more people?
It's huge, yeah, because so to take what you're talking about there and kind of turn it into the, or blend it with the psychology sort of lingo, what you're talking about there is somebody who's really struggling with what we would call a limiting belief. And that belief is something that they believe to be true about themselves, but in believing it is preventing them from fulfilling their full potential. So a really common limiting belief that I actually think that every single human on the planet struggles with this in one way or another, is the belief that you're not good enough to be doing whatever you're doing. You don't have enough knowledge or enough confidence or enough charisma or whatever it is to do what you're doing. And you know, that belief sort of shows up in those really kind of worried thoughts that you get in your head, feeling like I can't do it. It comes up in the anxiety or the discomfort that you'd feel around confronting doing something like that, getting on camera in front of an audience. But it is interesting to think about how all of that, and that's what we experience. We experience the thoughts and we experience the physical manifestation of that. But what's really at the root of it is this belief that we're not good enough to be doing it. And so a cool way to build confidence and build our ability to get around those uncomfortable feelings is to actually go back and sort of tackle the belief itself. Because if we believe that we're not good enough, that directly impacts our effort, how much we put into something. Because if you're already thinking to yourself, I'm not good enough at this, it's probably not going to work out, then anytime something goes wrong, we sort of take that as confirmation of our belief. Oh, look, that video didn't go well. Oh, look, I only got 2 likes or something. There you go. That's it. It's confirmed. I'm not good enough. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when we're in that belief or in that mindset, we take all of those events, the things that, you know, may go wrong or may help take things off track a little bit, as confirmation. That immediately then reduces the amount of effort that we put in next time, because we take on a lot of shame and embarrassment around it not going the way we wanted it to. And it basically impacts how you're going to then respond to the next opportunity that comes your way, whether you're going to say yes to that opportunity and put yourself out there the next time. Because again, you're just thinking, well, think about how when last time it was a gong show, it all confirmed my fears, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can flip that belief and try to operate from the place where we believe that we are good enough, or what I really like to teach people is that if it's too hard to just believe that you're good enough, believe that you have the capacity to always learn, that you can always get better. Okay, yeah, sure, maybe you aren't good enough today in this hour, but if you work at it for 2 hours, you're going to be better than you were 2 hours ago, and so on and so on. And you will develop the skills that you need as long as you're willing to put in the effort and to keep practicing thinking about it in a different way and thinking about who you are in a different way. And then that directly impacts how much effort you put in. It impacts how you perceive the things that go wrong. Instead of taking it as confirmation, then you're going, oh, that's information for me about how to get better. That's direct feedback that's going to help me improve. And that's a completely different place to operate from mentally. And it completely sets you up to look for more opportunities, be more open to opportunities. And it allows you to deal with any kind of setback or challenge, or even something that could be technically coined as a failure. It changes the meaning of it because it becomes an opportunity to improve.
Love that. Absolutely love that. I kind of just have this thing where I just be like, I'm just going to do it anyway. I know I'm going to be horrible at it, but I'm just going to do it. And I've kind of just developed this thing as the years have went on. And I suppose I was kind of just taking exactly what you just said there, albeit in better terms, and just applying it to things that I was trying to get better at, be it, you know, public speaking. And I suppose public speaking is probably the biggest one for most people.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I would be much more comfortable getting in the ring and fighting in front of 4,000 people than I would be public speaking, which I suppose someone who's really comfortable speaking on stage are kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
But, you know, I like you just said, I've, you know, put in the reps doing that. And it's taken me now, I don't know, I've been, you know, speaking in front of people now for 5-6 years, and only now am I actually starting to get comfortable with it.
And it does take that level of determination and repetition. And so when you are looking to confront something that's really difficult and change the way you think about it, you know, that's a really good way of framing it. Like it won't happen overnight. You have to get up. It's a choice every day to get up and choose to work on being confident, to choose on, you know, employing the skills and the thought processes and challenging the beliefs and learning how to actually figure out what those beliefs are and be able to sort of see them as something a little bit separate from yourself that you can influence is huge. But yeah, it does takes a lot of reps.
A lot of reps. Yeah. So I'm curious, I've heard you talk a couple of times about recognizing a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
People, well, I suppose both in yourself and in people as well. So what are some of the triggers that you kind of see, I suppose, in sporting athletes and from a coach's perspective as well?
So yeah, mindset is huge. Forgive me here, guys. I just realized my laptop was about to die, and so didn't want to suddenly lose you mid-conversation. So we're just got sorted now. Okay, so mindset is massive, and it's very much linked into what I was just talking about there, and that it's very connected to our beliefs. And so, but it's supposed with mindset, the main difference is that we have two ways of perceiving ability. And one is that it's something that we're born with a certain amount. And we see this all the time through our culture. We talk about people with being naturals at something all the time. It's a really common narrative, especially in sport, actually. You know, we talk about this natural ability. And it feeds into the idea that you can actually be born with a certain amount of innate talent for something, and that very much determines your success. And so that belief that you're born with a fixed amount of talent in one area is what underpins what we would call a fixed mindset. On the flip side, if you see ability as something that you can continually develop, and that there's no way to know what the cap of somebody's potential ability is, that there's no way to look at someone in this moment and say, I know how good you're going to be at that 10 years from now. That belief that you can always grow and develop is what underpins the growth mindset. And it's fascinating how just these two perceptions of ability have such a huge impact on how we then move through our lives and confront things like challenges and failures and opportunities for growth. And so someone with a fixed mindset believes that they're only ever going to be so good at something. And so effort loses its meaning, and effort actually becomes something that people who don't have natural talent have to do. And so by working hard, you're showing everybody that you don't have the natural talent. And so effort becomes this very kind of undesirable thing. Whereas at the growth mindset, people understand that effort is the direct link to mastering something, that it is the only way that we improve our skills and grow. And so someone with a growth mindset is 100% willing to put in the effort, and they're always looking for the opportunities to grow and develop. And then that affects how we react to the challenges. So again, someone with a growth mindset is going to perceive a challenging situation as an opportunity to learn, get feedback, and get better. Whereas someone with a fixed mindset sees a challenge or a mistake as a scary thing to be avoided, because if they mess up, then that mistake or that failure is defining them as being not good enough, or defining them as not having the skill that they think they need. So hopefully you guys are with me so far in that. It's a fascinating concept. And if anyone's interested in reading more about this, there's an amazing book by the original researcher. Her name's Carol Dweck. It's just called Mindset. Great read. But yeah, so directly, we see a fixed mindset all the time in the fitness industry. I've talked to a lot of different personal trainers who struggle with this with their clients, where they just don't, the clients come in and they don't believe that they're athletic people. They don't believe that they have the innate athleticism that it takes in order to get fit. And that belief has been backed up for them by years of, struggling maybe with their weight, struggling with their fitness, feeling like they can't achieve. And so one of the big challenges you guys have is not just to get this person exercising and eating properly, but to get them thinking differently and actually understanding how the way that they're thinking about themselves is going to directly impact whether or not that program will be successful.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, have you got, John Berardi from Precision Nutrition? Mm-hmm. They always recommended a book called Motivational Interviewing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I know about motivational interviewing, but I don't know if I've read that book. But
yeah, which I suppose I personally believe that it's the most difficult part of coaching someone on the gym floor. It's not like the training is the easy part. The nutrition, to a certain extent, can become quite simple.
Yeah, totally.
It's having someone believe that they can actually get a result, which is the most, for me, it's the most difficult part, without a doubt. I would guess that most trainers would be on the same boat for sure.
Yeah. And I suppose that's where, I think that's where I got into working with personal trainers, is that I just I saw and I heard, so much interest in this in terms of like, okay, yeah, this is something that I come up against again and again. How do I deal with this? And the interesting thing about psychology is that every single one of your clients is going to be a bit different. And everyone is going to have a different reason for their fixed mindset and a different interpretation of that. Or sometimes people have kind of a blended fixed and growth mindset. It's sort of a complex thing. And so it's, as you said, there's not necessarily a one size fit all system that you can apply. And instead, it's a set of skills that you need to develop as a personal trainer that allows you to kind of read the person in front of you and see how their experience fits into the model of the mindset. And it's actually really easy to do once you get a good sense of how that model works. And that's why the mindset model is so fantastic. It's a really clear model that really allows you to look at somebody's behavior and see how that's reacting with the model. So for example, if you have someone who is flying it, maybe at the beginning of the program, when things are easy, they're doing really well and they're like super on board with it and they're working really hard and it's great. And then something switches when suddenly it starts to get hard for them, when it starts to hit the edge of what's easy for them and what they feel like they can do without much effort. If all of a sudden that person starts to like weirdly lose interest or not call you back as much, or maybe they're bored or they start trying to get out of training, that's a really really clear sign of that fixed mindset kicking in, because that person doesn't want to apply the effort because they don't feel like they should have to apply the effort. So it's not about being lazy. It's about them having a different conceptualization of what effort means. So they feel that if they're struggling this much, it must be a sign that they're not good enough. So it's important to really kind of get to the root of that and not just assume that someone with a fixed mindset is lazy. It's a lot more complex than that.
I'm curious, Annika, so I'm guessing that you would have had to study a little bit into body language as well when doing psychology. It sort of comes hand in hand.
Definitely.
Do you, I suppose now you kind of find yourself picking up wee small things about people who they're maybe saying one thing to you, but their body language is saying something completely different?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting topic, actually. And it is something that definitely plays in. We're so attuned to people's body language at the end of the day, even if we're not like super conscious of it. And so I think, yeah, it can be very interesting to kind of read someone else's body language a little bit, and that can very much come into play when you're thinking about somebody's mindset approach to something. If people are being sort of very closed off, or anything that kind of screams defense to you or defensive, so that can come out in different ways, like putting more distance between them and you, the crossing arms, not facing you directly on, turning away to the side a little bit, things like that. That's them going into protection mode. And a fixed mindset is very much concerned with protecting that person's ego, and trying to, and not, they don't want to be exposed to, they don't want to feel exposed in that they're not good enough, because they don't believe that, they feel like once they've been labeled as not good enough, they can't change that, because there's nothing they can do to change their innate ability. So they're terrified of those labels. And so they're always trying to protect themselves from a situation where it might be obvious that they're struggling. And so, so that can be really interesting, and that can be a little clue. And then on the flip side, I think body language is huge. And I'm sure you talk about this with your guys, about how to help someone else feel really comfortable with your own body language. I think that's a huge role of what we do as coaches in any capacity. And just a little bit of tuning into what you're doing with your body can really help create a connection with your client.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually the first thing that we cover on the course.
Nice, yeah.
Purely because it's something that I've had to work hard on throughout the years, and it's even I would say it happens on a subconscious level. Especially, I don't know, have you ever worked with any fighters before?
You know what? I haven't. That's actually one group I have not, but I'm so interested in working with fighters. I think it's a fascinating area of sport and performance.
So, a lot of fighters would possibly retire, get into, and the natural progression is towards coaching. And like I always say to our guys, we would get a lot of ex-fighters and stuff on the courses, and I'm like, what you have to remember is that no longer are you in a boxing gym where it's an intimidating environment. But what happens is throughout the years, your body language kind of you kind of build up this. I would say you're about to get into conflict, all the time. So your body then adapts to that. Your facial expression, how your gait pattern, absolutely everything. And if you're in a gym, you're in that sort of environment. But then what we're dealing with is, just some, let's say, 40-year-old guy who's never been in a gym in his life, and he just wants to get in a little bit of shape, and all of a sudden you have to adapt this whole different posture and this whole different facial expression in order to make him feel completely at ease.
Yeah, such a good point.
Yeah, and it's something that maybe fighters wouldn't even be aware of, because you're in a certain environment, you just behave in a certain way in this environment, and then all of a sudden you're like trying to make other people feel comfortable where you didn't have to do that before, and it's so
totally.
Yeah.
I think psychology has a huge role to play there, just in helping personal trainers just sort of tune into their clients a bit more, and get a sense of, as you say, what that individual sort of needs from you. And I know I've seen that a lot in the gym, where maybe you see a personal trainer adopting like a real kind of like military style, where they're like really trying to like be the bad cop and like drill this person through. And then I'm looking at their client and reading them, and I'm going, oh, this isn't working at all, because you can just see that person shutting down and just like retreating into themselves and trying less and less as the session goes on. And so no, it is fascinating. And I think, and there are people who totally love the military approach. So it's not about letting that go completely. It's just about building up a repertoire of approaches and being able to kind of read the feedback that you're getting from the client, and develop your communication. I think communication is key there, because, if you don't have, when I say read the client, it's not about sort of developing like spooky psychological skills where you can just like look at someone and know what it is that they need. A big part of that is asking someone, having a conversation with them, and getting to know them, and getting to know what their style is. And so building your communication skills is a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely love that, Annika. So Annika, you are going to be doing a little talk for me next Saturday. next Saturday, yes.
Next Saturday, yeah.
Yes, okay. So guys watching, hit me up with a message if you would like some more information. We're going to go into more detail on some of this stuff next Saturday. And for some of the guys watching, where can they reach you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So my website is just my name, AnnikaMcGivern.com. It's nice and easy. My Instagram handle is AMP_performance psych. I think I actually put it in the comments under the notification about this live. So people can find that there, and I'd be happy to throw it up again under this live chat. It's a bit long. It's not the easiest to remember. And then if you want to just reach out directly, my email is just Annika@AnnikaMcGivern.com. And please do, I'd love to just chat with anyone directly if they have any questions or interest about how this type of work what that could look like for them moving forward. And yeah, I think those are probably the main areas.
Yeah, cool. So we were kind of just discussing before you come on here as well, and this is a wee bit of public accountability for you. You're going to have something coming up specifically for coaches in the near future.
Yeah, and so I've a few of you maybe who are familiar with me have probably heard me talk a little bit about this already. So I'm designing an online course, although it's going to be a combination of online work and in-person work through coaching calls, because I don't think that the real value comes from learning the content, but then actually being able to talk it out in person, or as close to in person as we can get in this particular moment in time with our crisis. So it's going to be, it'll be a combination of that. So I suppose as a quick rundown, it's going to look like a 3-week course with 3 group coaching calls in each of the weeks. So you'll be presented with a lot of cool content. You're going to be given ways and challenges of how to apply that to yourself as an individual, as a business owner, entrepreneur, and a coach. And then the second part is then how do you go and apply that in a way that adds value for your clients and helps them also take on board these sort of ideas around mindset and beliefs so that they can start applying it in their own work and their own lives. So I'm really excited about it. So definitely stay tuned for more information about that. And if anyone has any questions, as I pull the course together, I will be looking for a small group to do like a soft launch of it. So if anyone's interested in being involved in that, then let me know.
Absolutely. So Annika, thank you very much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Before we'll let you go, if there was something that I should have asked you today, but I didn't, what would that have been?
Ooh, good question. I suppose one thing I think that was maybe on the little list of stuff we were going to talk about that we didn't get to was about controlling thoughts and emotions. So I'll leave you guys with one tidbit about that. And this is a really cool concept that I love teaching people about, that we should not believe everything we think. We tend to take our thoughts as truth. And a lot of the reason for that is that we very much feel our thoughts. Our thoughts create our emotions. And so when we feel, if we're thinking anxious thoughts and then that results in a real, actual, tangible feeling of anxiety in our body, it feels incredibly real. But the first step to sort of getting more control over your thinking is to acknowledge the fact that thoughts are not truth. They're just thoughts. Just because you think something doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. And it doesn't mean it has to mean something more than the thought. So so maybe everyone just practice that over the next couple of days. Practice noticing what you're thinking and then just trying to take a step back from it and not get attached to that thought, and see if that starts to change your relationship with what you are thinking.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Annika. That was
my pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
Unreal. Really super. Look, can't wait the next week.
What's that?
I can't wait the next week. Really.
No, me neither. It's going to be a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Fantastic. All
Annika,
right.
Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
I'll speak to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye, Michael.
Awesome. Bye.